أنا يا أخي في الله واسمع منهجي خذ يا أخي في الله بيدي وساعدي سلفية في النهج نهج الأنبياء وجميع أصحاب الرسول محمد.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Brothers and sisters, welcome back to Manhaj Mondays. This is the show in which we study the manhaj, in other words the methodology, the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, in this ummah there will be 73 sects. 72 of them will go to the hellfire, whereas one of them will make it to paradise. What is that one sect? That is what we're studying here in this program, the characteristics and the things that make that sect the safe sect. So inshallah ta'ala, if you have missed any of the previous lessons, then please go to the playlist section of this channel and catch up, because each lesson is connected. The same way each domino requires a domino before it in order to knock it down, each lesson on the Manhaj Monday series requires the lesson before it in order for you to fully understand that which we're going through. So as we know, the scholars play an integral role in our religion, okay? But some people have gone overboard and extreme on the scholars. Some people have gone overboard to the point where what? They take the scholar and they take him to the level of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some even do it to taking the scholar to the level of being a god. Others, they drop the scholar. They drop him to the level where he's just like a normal person, and they belittle him and they take him for granted. And that is another extreme. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to kind of tackle that extreme from one angle. Not all of its angles, but one angle, which is the extreme of just dropping the scholar. Now, as we know from the previous lessons, that no one is infallible except for the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, the Quran and Sunnah both are infallible, because both of them are being revealed by Allah Azza wa Jal. So, because of that, that means anyone who comes after the Prophet ﷺ is bound to make mistakes, is bound to make errors. Now, if this person makes an error, if this scholar, if this sheikh makes an error, then what do we do in that situation? Do we still revere him as a scholar? Or do we just drop him and say, well, this person is worthless. This person really doesn't have much value anymore, because now he or she has fallen short, because obviously women can be scholars as well. So we have to observe something here. We have to ask ourselves, what is the nature of this mistake? Is this mistake a mistake in the usul of the religion? Usul here means the fundamentals of the religion. Or is this a mistake which is a mistake in the furu' of the religion, which means the sub-branches of the religion? So imagine we have a tree. The foundation of the tree, the roots of the tree, that's the asl. That's the foundation, the roots. Then from the roots stem what? They stem branches. And then from the branches stem twigs. And from the twigs stem leaves. And from those leaves stem fruits. So all of those are what? The sub-branches. They are the sub-branches. And in other words, there are things that are important and they have their place in a religion, but they don't hold the same weight and the same significance as the foundation of the tree. Because if I rip out the foundations, the whole tree is going to collapse. But if I rip off a branch, if I rip off a twig, or rip off a leaf or a fruit, and the tree is incomplete, it's inadequate to a degree, but it's still a tree. Do you see? It still exists as a fully functioning tree. The same way, a person might make a mistake, and they might make a mistake in the usul, the foundation of the religion, the aqidah, for example. A majority of things in aqidah are all foundational. If you go wrong on the issue of Allah's names and His attributes, on the issue of tawheed, for example, on the issue of the messengers, the books, the day of judgment, the qadr, if you go wrong on the issue of the angels, if you go wrong on the issue of the sahaba, if you go wrong on the issue of kufr and iman, these other chapters of aqidah which we will study inshallah ta'ala in the future, if you go wrong on these things, then that means the person will leave the fold of Ahlul Sunnah completely. That means that they've gone wrong in the foundations, in the root of the tree. They've gone wrong in the root of the tree. So now that tree no longer stands. You're no longer a Sunni. You've fallen off the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you've now entered one of the sects that is going to go to the hellfire. But if a person makes a mistake in the sub-branches, for example, the person makes a mistake with regards to particular ahkam pertaining to let's use an example. For example, the person makes a mistake pertaining to some issues pertaining to zakat or even the salah. They make a mistake. Let's just say, for example, they don't do the raf'ul yadayn. They don't lift up their hands when they do the takbir. They make that mistake, for example, or other mistakes they make them. That is not a mistake in the foundations of the religion. If you make that mistake, okay, it might be a mistake, but your tree of iman still stands. There just might be a few discrepancies which you can clean up, but at the end of it still stands. So we have to ask ourselves, based on what I've just given you as an introduction, this mistake that the scholar has made, has his mistake occurred in the root of the tree, in the foundation of the religion, or has it occurred in the sub branches of the religion? If the mistake occurs in the root of the tree, then basically in that situation, that sheikh is disregarded, and he's not taken as a reference point anymore, because he's got serious issues. These issues have taken him out of Ahl Sunnah now. He's now fallen into one of the sects that is not saved, that is on the path of the hellfire. So for now, we have to be scared, because if we follow him, we might also follow him in that, and then that will take us wrong. Okay. Who is it that will identify such a mistake? The scholars will identify such a mistake. Unless a person comes out there and clearly tells you, hey, I'm a Shi'i, or you can clearly see from him, whether he tells you that this person was never a Sunni in the first place, or this person was an Ikhwani from the beginning, unless it's a situation like that, you need a scholar to tell you, no, this person is no longer a Sunni anymore. This person has made a mistake, we've identified it, and for that reason now, we're labeling him as an innovator. When that happens, because we don't ourselves have the ability to do that, when that happens, what do? We follow the Shaykh in that, and we now can also, inshallah ta'ala, follow the Shaykh in his ruling with regards to that person, and ignore this particular Shaykh. But now, if a mistake happens from a Shaykh in the sub-branches of the religion, for example, masail that are furu', for example, I'll give you an example. In Aqidah, you can also have issues that are furu'. You can have, in Aqidah, you can have sub-branch issues. For example, a foundational issue in Aqidah is that we all affirm for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a hand. Unlike the philosophers and the Asha'ira who try to, say these verses are metaphorical. Allah tells us He has a hand. Now, we don't know how His hand is. We don't know what it looks like in any way, shape, or form, but we know He has a hand. And that's not hard for us to conceive, because the clock has a hand and I have a hand, but the hand of the clock and my hand are different hands, right? The name is the same, but the essence is different. So the same way, Allah has a hand, we have a hand. The name is the same, but the kayfiyah, the how, the essence of my hand, the essence of Allah's hand are different. Do you see where I'm coming from? So, but there's a group that deny that, okay? And they say, no, Allah doesn't have a hand. If we say He has a hand, we're comparing Him to us. We say, we're not comparing. And when you say the clock has a hand, I have a hand, no, they're not the same. But just the name is the same, but the essence is different. Same way, Allah has a hand, because He told us He has a hand in the Quran. In fact, He told us He has two hands. And then we also have a hand, but we're not saying it's the same hand, okay? But they deny that, and because of it, a whole big fiasco occurs. Now, pay attention. If you deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand, then what happens is that you have now fell into a major mistake. You fell into a key mistake in your aqidah, in your belief. But now a sub-branch mistake in the issue of aqidah is going to be, for example, on the issue of, does Allah have a right hand and a left hand, or does Allah have two right hands? Because this was a discussion that took place within Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Now the strongest view, and I don't want to go into it because it's going to take us on a tangent, the strongest view, inshallah ta'ala, based on the evidences and the aqwal of the ulama that stand, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands, both of them are right hands. Okay? Again, we don't ask how. We don't ask how because we've never seen, we don't know. Allah only told us we only know that there's two right hands based on the evidences, but we don't know what and how they are. Okay? The only way you could know is if Allah Himself told you, if you saw Allah, or if someone who saw Allah told you, and none of those three took place, so we don't know. So that's not something that we can come to know. But all we know is that they exist. Now here's the thing. If a scholar now comes and says, well, I take the view that Allah has a right hand and a left hand, because that was a view that some scholars had, we will say this is a mistake, but this is not a mistake in the foundation. This is not a mistake in the foundation of your creed. This is a mistake in the sub-branch issues pertaining to your aqid, in your creed. The reason I mention this is because some people believe that you can't have, the aqidah, all of aqidah is foundational. The overwhelming majority of it is, but there are some issues within aqidah that are not foundational, that are issues that within the scope of Ahlul Sunnah, scholars of the Salaf, they differ on some issues. The same way, fiqh, people see all of fiqh as sub-branch. That's not correct, because there are issues of fiqh that are foundational. For example, the issue of wiping over your socks. If you reject this, you can fall out of Ahlul Sunnah just by rejecting it, because the Shia, they reject it. So it is a characteristic of the Shia to now reject wiping over your socks. That's why the scholars enter this into books of Aqidah. The issue of jihad, it's in the books of fiqh, but it is a foundational issue pertaining to religion. If you get it wrong, and you end up like these ISIS people, for example, and you can leave the fold of Ahlul Sunnah. The issue of the salah, it's not a sub-branch issue, because scholars have said, and this is the strongest view, based on the consensus of the Sahaba as narrated in Sunnah Tirmidhi by Abdullah ibn Shaqiq, that the Sahaba unanimously agreed that if you abandon the salah, you fall into kufr. You leave a prayer, you're a kafir now. So it's fiqh, but it's foundational, it's a sub-branch issue. So anyway, that was a bit of a long introduction, but let's take it back. The point I'm trying to make is, how do you deal with the mistake of a scholar? First, you see, is his mistake in the foundations? If it is in the foundations of the religion, and then that scholar can be disregarded. But you need the backing of a sheikh who actually looked into his situation and told you, this man is definitely an innovator. Because me and you don't necessarily have the means to be able to do that. Unless the person is clear cut from the beginning, you saw he was a Shi'i to begin with, and he's not hiding it. He was a Sufi, Barelvi, he's saying, I'm Hizb al-Tahrir, he's an Ikhwani, he's making it clear, I'm an Ikhwani. And for now you don't need a scholar to tell you this guy's an innovator, because he's already made it clear he's an innovator. Those kind of mistakes in Aqidah, you disregard them in a second, in a heartbeat. And that's what we're not going to take from you, Barakallahu Feek, this person is a Mubtadi' Darun Mudil. But now, what about mistakes that the Shaykh has made and they're not in the foundational parts of the religion? Not in the foundations of Aqidah, not in the foundations of fiqh. What do we do with such a mistake? Such a situation, we say, the Shaykh made a mistake. We don't say, by the way, we don't have the right to do any of this saying. The scholars say it. The scholars who get it right, because they have the ability, we're just following, right? The scholars who get it right, they will tell you the Shaykh made a mistake, and they'll give their evidence, and we will say, based on what the scholar said, that the Shaykh made a mistake. But he's still virtuous, he's still noble, he's still honourable, he's got this ocean of work, an ocean of things that he got right, and he's got a few mistakes, no problem. La ba'sa bihi. We're gonna follow him in that which he got right, and we're gonna not take him in that which he got wrong. So I want to mention to you some statements of the Salaf so you can kind of get an understanding of this, because we live in a day and age where people have gone extreme. Some people are lifting up people who are upon bid'ah and saying, he's upon bid'ah, but take the good and leave the bad. No, we're going to say, there's no taking the good and leaving the bad from the one who does bid'ah, because you don't know what's bid'ah and what's not, because you might not have studied the Aqidah, and sometimes they can slip it into you, as we're going to study, without you even knowing. And then the other extreme is that the scholar who might have made a small mistake, he is the one that you say take the good and leave the bad. The one who might have made a mistake in issues of the sub-branches. He is the one you say, take the good, the ocean of good, and leave the bad, the few things that he got wrong. That one you can take. People probably take the good and leave the bad, as if to the Shi'i, the Sufi, the Barelvi, the Ikhwani, the Hizb al-Tahrir, whatever. No, that doesn't apply to the innovator who made mistakes in the foundation. The one who made mistakes in the sub-branch, we take the good and we leave the bad. Now I want to mention to you some statements of the Salaf so you can see how the Salaf would deal with each other when people would make mistakes in the sub-branches of the religion. They wouldn't go overboard. They wouldn't start to base love and hate on the fact that you do Raf'ul Yadayn and I don't do Raf'ul Yadayn. You lift your hands, we wouldn't start wars based on that. Yeah, they would refute. They would say, yeah, you got it wrong. But they wouldn't start wars based on things like this. Do you see where I'm coming from? So, first example I give you is of Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah. To show you that they would identify a mistake in a scholar, they would refute the mistake, but they would still lift him and say, no, he's still noble though. We don't drop him based on one mistake or few mistakes he made. Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah narrated a hadith one day. And someone said to him, your brother Malik, Imam Malik, he opposes you in this hadith. He doesn't see the hadith the way that you see the hadith. He's against you. Look at what Sufyan ibn Uyayna said. Sufyan ibn Uyayna said, are you comparing me to Malik? Are you saying me and Malik are equal? Are you actually trying to say I am the hadith and Malik went against me? You're trying to bring us on the same scale, we're trying to bring us in the same arena? Is that what you're trying to do? He said, me and Malik are like the poet said. And then he mentioned the poetry. And what was the poetry? The poetry mentioned that there is the camel, which is big. The camel which is big and fully developed. If you tie its leg to the camel that's newly born, the young camel, what's going to happen to the young camel? If you tie their legs together, the young camel won't be able to keep up with the fully grown, developed big camel. So what's going to happen? It's going to fall over and then it's going to start dragging on the streets. He said, you comparing me to Malik is like you comparing the small camel to the big camel. Meaning, Malik is the big camel, I'm the small camel. If you try to tie me to him, I'm going to be dragged across the streets. Malik is too big, he's matured, he's developed. But pay attention. He still opposed him though. He still refuted. He said, I disagree with Malik on that hadith. He still didn't take it. So he identified the mistake in the Shaykh, but he still honoured him in the way that he deserves to be honoured. And that is narrated in Hilyat al-Awliya by Imam Abu Nu'aym al-Asbahani rahimahullah. Another example is the example of Yahya ibn Ma'in. Yahya ibn Ma'in rahimahullah was a man, a scholar, that people used to tremble when he would enter the room, because if he told you that you were authentic and you were thiqatun thabt, you were trustworthy and precise when it came to your narrations, then everyone would start taking narrations from you. But if he said, no, this man, he's kadhab, or he's majhul, he's a liar, he's unknown, or he makes mistakes or whatever have you, then that's it, you're dropped. No one's going to take nothing from you. So people would be scared. Like Yahya ibn Ma'in was the kind of guy that, people, when they came to Iraq, they just wanted to shake his hand. Because Yahya wouldn't shake hands with anyone that was weak or dodgy or what. If he shook your hand, it means you're certified now. So you go and say, Yahya shook my hand, so take hadith from me, I'm authentic, basically, in other words, yeah? So one time he entered into the gathering of the Shaykh of Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, which was Shaykh Nu'aym al-Khuzai, rahimahullah. And Shaykh Nu'aym al-Khuzai was there, and he was teaching his students, and he was narrating hadith, and he narrated a particular hadith where he said, Haddathana Ibn Mubarak. He said, Ibn Mubarak told us, An Ibn Awn, and Ibn Mubarak said, Ibn Awn told him. He said, Ibn Mubarak told us, and he told us this, and he got it from Ibn Awn. So there's two people, Ibn Mubarak. So the Shaykh is saying, I heard it from Ibn Mubarak, and Ibn Mubarak heard it from Ibn Awn. Okay, and then he went on. So then, when Yahya ibn Ma'in heard that, he said, you're wrong, basically. Basically, he said, you're wrong. He said, you made a mistake. Nu'aym al-Khuzai, rahimahullah, the Shaykh of Imam al-Bukhari, he became angry. He said, are you trying to refute me? And Yahya ibn Ma'in said, yes. He said, Wallahi, I want to beautify your affairs. Meaning, I'm not doing this to make you look bad. I just want to make sure that you don't make these mistakes. I want to beautify your affairs. I want you to make sure you get it right. When he said this, Shaykh Nu'aym al-Khuzai said, I'm not going to come back from this. Like this, I'm not wrong. I'm right. I heard it from Ibn Mubarak, and Ibn Mubarak heard it from Ibn Awn. Yahya ibn Ma'in said, when I heard him say this, he said, I said to him, Wallahi, you have not heard it from Ibn Mubarak. And Wallahi, Ibn Mubarak has not heard this from Ibn Awn. When Nu'aym heard this, he became angry. And his students did as well. They got up. Nu'aym went to his room, and he checked the original piece of paper in which he had written down the original chain. The original chain, when he had originally heard it, he had written it down. So when he went and checked, then he came back out. You can imagine the epic scenery. Everyone's thinking, what's he going to say? What happened? He announces, he says, where are those who claim that Yahya ibn Ma'in is not Amirul Mu'mineen of Hadith? Where are those who claim that Yahya ibn Ma'in is not from the leader of the believers when it comes to the Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Yahya ibn Ma'in, his nickname was Abu Zakaria, his kunya. He said, oh, Abu Zakaria, I got it wrong. It wasn't Ibn Mubarak who I heard it from. That's how the Salaf were. That's how the Salaf were. And Yahya ibn Ma'in didn't drop his status for him getting it wrong. And nor did Abu Nu'aym al-Khuzai, nor did he get angry or upset at the fact that he was corrected by his brother Yahya ibn Ma'in. Another example is Yunus ibn Abdullah al-Sadafi. He said, I never saw anyone more smarter than Ash-Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i. He said, I debated with him one day, and then we went separate ways. They kind of, maybe got a bit heated. We went our separate ways. He said, when we went our separate ways, Shafi'i grabbed me by my hand. And he said, should we not love one another as brothers even though we differ? Now pay attention. A lot of people use this and they use it out of context. They use it to say, oh, look, the Shi'i and the Barelvi and the Shi'i and the Salafi, we Shafi'i, right now what would he do? He said, shouldn't we love each other as brothers even though we differ? The issue is here that other narrations of the same incident tell us that the issue that they were debating was not an issue that was a foundational issue. an issue of aqidah or a foundation issue of fiqh. Rather, it was an issue that was from the from the sub branches of the religion. It was a minor issue. It was a minor issue. So minor issues, yeah, if you make a mistake, you can be brothers. Major issues, take a step back. You're upon a different path to me now. We've got nothing to do with each other. Our love and hatred is based upon this now. And finally, inshallah ta'ala, I want to mention to you that which Imam Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah mentioned. Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah has a book in which he wrote about the awham and the tafriq. So awham is basically the mistakes. It's the things that the scholars, without going into the technicalities of the word, it's the things where the scholars made mistakes. They got it wrong. So he's basically written this book about the mistakes of the scholars. He said, someone would think when they read this book that we intended bad of the scholars, and that I intended and I tried to bring their status down and to slander them, and only to bring out the mistakes of these great noble scholars. He said that when you read this book and you read, because the book is basically just mistakes, just pulling out mistakes, things that they got wrong. So if you read this, you think, well, this man just wants to badmouth the scholars. He said, how can that be the case when we ourselves use them in other hadith? Meaning this hadith, he might have made a mistake, but the same man, we use him in other hadith. So we're not putting him down. They are our stepping stones. They are the ray of light. And the ray of light that came out of them is the light that we see things through. Meaning it's like we use them on a day-to-day basis. But when they got it wrong, we'll mention that they got it wrong. So he's saying, look, I'm gonna write a book mentioning their mistakes so people don't get misguided. They don't fall into the same mistakes they did. But I'm not gonna put their status down. And then what did he do? He mentioned their poetry. He said, "Ma nahnu fi man mada illa ka baqlin fi usul nakhl tiwali." He said, what are we in comparison to those who came before us, except for ka baqlin. Baqlin is like the fungus, the weeds that grow on the ground. He said, we are like the fungus in the ground, fi usuli nakhlin tiwali, next to the roots of the tall palm trees. He's saying, these scholars who I'm saying there's a mistake. Yeah, there's a mistake. He's not perfect. But if you want to compare me to him, then I'm like the fungus on the ground, the weeds on the ground, right next to the roots of this tall tree. He's like a tall palm tree, and I'm just the fungus on the ground. To show you that, just because a mistake of a particular scholar was corrected, did not now from this necessitate that scholar is to be disregarded, provided his mistake was not in the foundations of the religion, but rather it was in the sub-branches of the religion. If it's in the foundations of the religion, Assalamu alaikum, we are not going to vibe with that particular person. Hope that clarifies this misconception for many people. Remember, the Salaf, and like I said, the Salaf themselves would be happy to be corrected, as I gave you the example of Nu'aym al-Khuzai rahimahullah ta'ala. So inshallah ta'ala, if you want to go through more on the issue of Manhaj, I have a whole course on the Muslim Survival Guide. You can check that out from the link below and study online inshallah ta'ala if you'd like. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey guys, I really hope that you benefited from that video. Before you go, I want to ask you a really important question. Have you guys ever thought about studying Islam and seeking knowledge? If not, then I want you to reflect upon this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet said that seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every single Muslim. Of course, that doesn't mean you have to be a scholar, but you have to know the basics in order for you to be the best possible slave and worshipper of Allah that you can possibly be. So we decided to provide a solution for this. You see, many people want to study, but they don't have the means or the resources to do so. So we set up an online institute called the Knowledge College, where you can study Islam from the comfort of your own home. So if you want more information on the Knowledge College and you'd like to sign up, go to the link below, check out the website, and hopefully we see you on the other side. Assalamu alaikum.